The government is defending the decision made by the board of the Edna Manley School to suspend the school's principal after she reportedly refused to go on leave amidst the investigation into the string of sexual harassment cases at the institution. According to reports, the principal failed in her capacity to conduct the necessary due diligence when she was made aware of the cases. Jamaica Maitland reports.
Minister with the responsibility for education, Carl Samuda, is standing by Edna Manley's board decision to suspend Dr. Nicolene DeGrassi from her post as principal to allow the investigations to proceed. According to the minister, the principal was given the option to go on leave. However, she declined. She has been suspended since July 24.
In an effort to properly investigate the matter, the board invited the principal to take leave. The principal declined the invitation, and as a result, the board asked, in accordance with education regulations, suspending her pending the conclusion of the investigation and hearing.
But opposition spokesman on education, Peter Bunting, described the suspension as a clear witch hunt, citing that DeGrassi had a spotless record during her tenure at Edna Manley. He theorized that she was being sidestepped to make way for pre-approved and possibly JLP-coated professionals whilst alluding to the Petrojam scandal. Dr. DeGrassi is accused of mishandling several sexual harassment cases. She reportedly neglected her duties as the head of the institution when teachers and students informed her of being sexually harassed by a senior male lecturer.
They have suspended the principal, someone who has dedicated their career to the institution, starting there as a student, being previously the dean of dance with high commendation, having served as a principal since 2012. And we are not aware of any negative performance evaluation.
However, Minister Samuda disagreed. While acknowledging that there has not yet been a hearing for the principal, he assured the public that she will be treated fairly. In the meantime, he announced that the government has established an independent email address to report sexual harassment. And the minister announced that Edna Manley will have a revised sexual harassment policy by the next semester. Jamaica Maitland for CVM Live.
The lack of focus on science, technology, engineering and mathematics might be stifling the country's growth. Just one of the statements made at the recent consultative meeting on STEM for Growth, a move to ensure the future competitiveness of Jamaica's economy. Speakers at the event also spoke of plans for the National STEM Center in Jamaica and how to facilitate collaboration around the subject areas. Khadija Thomas tells us more in this report.
Science, technology, engineering and mathematics education has become a priority for Jamaica's public and private sector. As technology develops and human intelligence evolves, there appears to be a need for fostering STEM engagement at an early age. This means implementing initiatives that will support research aimed at developing mechanisms that are responsive to the needs of teaching and learning these subject areas.
We had a target some time ago to get 6,000 engineers by, I think it was 2021. Now, in addition to the fact that 85% get excluded for the economy, those that do in fact complete secondary school, 80% of these don't do any science subjects at all.
He was speaking at the consultative meeting on STEM for Growth at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. According to him, an ineffective education system as well as lack of attention to STEM will affect the country's growth rate.
The Nobel Prize winners for 2019 in economic sciences pointed out that there are two reasons why peripheral countries like ourselves tend not to grow. Resource misallocation and the need for effective teaching. I was surprised when I saw that one, because these are economic scientists telling us that we need to emphasize teaching our teachers.
Adding to this, the Chief Executive Officer of TechTrep, Marlon Lindsay, says the private sector cannot wait until the government addresses STEM concerns.
Of all of us who are organized to address this, including businesses, what do we bring to the table? What are we missing? How do we prop up each other so that in the end the children and the community will benefit by us working collaboratively. So it's, what do you have? What do you need? How do we get there together?
Their call is to include all persons in STEM for education by building a collaborative base for scientific development for students and teachers. Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
An economist and a market analyst are urging the government to carefully examine the country's fiscal room before deciding on a tax break. The comments were made after the opposition People's National Party reignited the tax policy debate. They are calling for a 2% reduction in GCT. However, the duo argued that any decision on tax breaks must be in line with the country's long-term development plan. Jamaica Maitland reports.
The economists argue that the 2% reduction in the general consumption tax being proposed by the PNP will not benefit the poor. Executive Director of the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, Capri, Dr. Damian King, argued that 2% equates to approximately $30 billion. But he explained that of that amount, less than 10% will impact the poor, since trends show that the poor consume less.
Why would you use $30 billion of fiscal resources in a way that only a tenth of it benefits the poor? If you have $30 billion to play with, put it in the PATH program. That's where all the poor are.
Meanwhile, capital market analyst Simon Johnson is urging the government to continue on its path of fiscal discipline, citing that the country has never experienced this level of fiscal space. He's reminding the public that while the government no longer has a fiscal deficit, it does have a long-term development plan.
If it is that your long-term objective is enhancing and growing the MSME sector and creating opportunities so that the overall economy can grow, then continue to institute policies that are in advancement of such. Continue to increase social services and continue to improve on the infrastructure that over the past couple of decades has been lacking. The health infrastructure, physical infrastructure, the road, etc., education.
And with general election in the air, the tax debate is becoming more frequent as both political parties take jabs at each other and criticize policies. Jamaica is not constitutionally due for an election until 2021, but the market analysts argue that the issue of a tax break must be carefully examined.
My grandmother have a budget. You make money and you spend money as well. If you are here, if you're making this and you're spending this, and you agree to reduce this side, you only have two other things. It's either you increase this side or you reduce this side. Decisions have to be made. So nobody is against the GCT being cut. But we're saying let's approach this in a structured way.
Jamaica Maitland for CVM Live.
The government has signed $2 million contracts for public sector compensation review and introduction of shared corporate services. Permanent secretaries are said to have agreed to a performance-based pay incentive as part of their compensation package. The Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, says the projects are aimed at improving internal efficiencies in the sector. Khadija Thomas reports.
The contracts were signed with international consulting firm Ernst & Young Jamaica Limited and is expected to assist in fostering a more effective public sector system in the island.
The compensation review that will be undertaken by Ernst & Young in conjunction with the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service will involve reviewing public sector compensation as a whole, benchmarking compensation against what happens elsewhere in Jamaica. We'll be looking towards establishing a single job evaluation system where jobs can be evaluated according to a single criteria rather than using multiple job evaluation criteria, which we have been using over the past several decades.
While describing the structure of public sector compensation as being complicated and layered, the finance minister says the current structure of compensation in the public sector has been an issue.
There are over 325 distinct grades in the public sector, which is not sustainable. That leads to a public sector compensation system that is extremely complicated, very inefficient, and non-transparent. In addition, there are at least 175 separate and distinct allowances across the public sector. I got a note today to say it's actually 185. And that is a problem.
Under this compensation review, which is valued at US $1.6 million, consultants will also develop a proposal for a pay-for-performance and reward framework. The contract for the introduction of shared corporate services is valued at US $5.4 million and will enable shared services across 7 areas of operation. Both projects will begin in January 2020 and expected to be completed within 2 years. Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.